Hey guys, I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying your time down at Woolamaya. Today we're looking at factorizations of non-monic quadratics, and this is where it does get a little bit tough. Now, in saying that, if you learn how to do the long method with the monic quadratics, this actually isn't tough at all. Okay, it's exactly the same method. The problem's going to be when we're doing the monic quadratics, like we'll see in this first example here, we tend to take a shortcut. And so with the monics, the shortcut works. With the non-monics, no. So we got to be careful to always remember the long method. Now, if I look at this question here, the x squared plus 6x minus 7, we'll just review this quickly. With scaffolding, you would have looked at things like this. So the product is the first number times the last number, which is the -7, and the middle number of the sum is that middle number there. Now, very important that you really recognize that p-value comes from the first number times the last number. The issue is with all the monic quadratics, because the first number is a 1, it looks like it's always the last number and only the last number, but it's not. You must tie them together. That's important. Okay, I then look at two numbers that multiply to give 7 and 1. Well, they can only be 7 and 1 because it's a prime number. Okay, that's fine. How does 7 and 1 make positive 6? Well, I'm going to take away the 1, of course, from 7. Now, the quick method, of course, you would have learned because it's monic, you would have just done this. Which, you know what, it's absolutely spot on. I would do that, 100%. There's no real need to go on and do the longer method. However, for this purpose, I'm going to show it to you because we need to use it for the nons. Now, the whole idea, of course, of getting these two numbers here is that we're breaking the 6x down into those two numbers. Like we saw that previous lesson, we're breaking to plus 7x and minus 1x. Now, let's rewrite this and see why we do that. X squared plus 7x minus 1x minus 7. We did that, of course, because we can break it down to the 4 terms, and I can factorize them to make x outside of x plus 7, -1 outside of x plus 7. There's those warm fuzzies again because they're the same. I know I'm right. I factorize the x plus 7 out the front, and I'm left with the x minus 1, and I'm good to go. Now, of course, we knew that was the answer from the get-go. So why would you do it with monics? Well, you probably wouldn't. However, let's have a look at the next example. Now, if you think you know what to do and you want to smash off these 4 questions, then by all means, go for it. Pause it, let's run with it and see how you go. Otherwise, hold tight. Okay, so I'm going to start this question exactly the same way. I'm going to look at my product and my sum. Again, if you're using cross method or division method, go for it, but I'm doing product and sum method. All right, so my product, 2 times minus 3 is -6, and -5 is my sum. Be very careful. A few of you will put minus 3 as the product. It's not. It's the first times the last. Now, 6 and 5 for me, I've got to say, these are the magical ones. These are the ones that there's so many different possibilities that look like they might work, but only one combination will. For example, numbers that times together give 6 are 6 and 1. 6 and 1 can make -5 by doing those two versions, and that actually looks pretty good. The issue is 3 and 2 can both times together give -6 as well. Okay, for example, -3 times 2, or 3 times -2. The problem is going to be the only way to make -5 is having those two as negative, which means they will give you a positive 6 and it won't work. Be very careful with the 6-5 combination because those two combos look like they are going to work, but only one of them does, and it's -6 and 1. Now, this is the problem, right? If I go ahead and do this method and throw it straight into here, can you see why that doesn't work? Can you see why that doesn't work? Apologies for my dog. Now, if I look at this, and I expand it out, I get x squared. That's probably where your first problem is going to be. Then I get plus x, I get minus the 6x, and I get minus the 6. If I simplify that, that's what I come out with. And the problem is, that is not what I wanted. So it is wrong, okay? It's hard, but it's wrong. So what do? Well, we have to employ the long method, okay, like with that previous question. I'm going to break the 2x squared into -6x plus 1x minus 3. So I've taken those two numbers that we found and I split that middle term. So what I did, I created that factorization of pairs. If I now look at these four terms, I can factorize, right? Because 2 goes into both and x goes into both, leaving x minus 3. 1 goes into both, which leaves me with x minus 3, the warm fuzzies, because they're the same. I've factorized the x minus 3 at the front. I have 2x plus 1, and Bob's your uncle, I factorized it. Okay, so it's the long method. It's called the product and sum method, as we know from that previous question. But because it's a non-monic, we have to do the long way. We can't do the short way. Now, of course, cross method and division method, there's different ways of doing this. So now we've done that first one, you really might want to have a crack at the next one. Okay, did you have a go at it? Let's see how you went. So my product and my sum, I call this the scaffolding. Okay, 3 times minus 5 is minus 15, and I have plus 2 in the middle there. Okay, so what are some two numbers? Well, I've got 15 and 1, they're not going to make 2. So I've got 5 and 3, they'll have to be my two numbers because that's the only two left. How can 5 and 3 make 2? Well, 5 take away 3. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to split that 2x into the 5x minus 3x. So 3x squared plus 5x minus 3x minus 5. Now, one of the questions I often get with this is, doesn't matter if I put the 5 and the minus 3 first or the minus 3 before the 5. And actually, it doesn't matter. We'll have a look at what happens when we do that. I'm going to factorize here. We get the x outside of the 3x plus 5. I'm going to take a negative 1 out of the 3x plus 5. Be careful with your negatives in this one. We know that if we do it correctly, these should be the same. So if you have a negative somewhere, just double check you're working, make sure you've done it right. And now I'm going to factorize the 3x plus 5 at the front, and I've got my x minus 1, and just like that, you factorize your non-monic quadratic. Okay, and realistically, the non-monics don't get much more difficult than that, realistically. Okay, now just to address the question, if we say, what happens if I put the minus 3x first and the plus 5x second? Let's see actually what does happen. Well, I can factorize both the 3 and the x out. I get the x minus, and that makes 1. I can factorize the 5 out, and I'm left with x minus 1. Can you see what the difference is? In that first question, we had the 3x plus 5 in brackets. In this case, they're at the front. The first case, we had the x minus 1 at the front. They're now inside the bracket. So when I factorize it out, we still have the exact same answer. It's just we have them the other way around. So it doesn't really matter. Don't get too concerned by that. Now, when I'm writing my final answer out, if I have a 3 or a 2x or for a non-monic, I generally put that bracket first. But it's both right. So it's just personal preference. Okay, and the last one, or second last one, we have the 7x squared plus 18x minus 9. Okay, the reason this is getting more challenging, of course, is that we start now playing with bigger numbers. Product and sum, and it can get, the textbook can give you some doozies too. 7 times 9, well, 7 nines is 63, and we have 18 in the middle. Okay, so what are some numbers that times together, I guess, to give the 63 that might add together to give 18? So let's look at some factors. And if you're never sure, I always say, you should be able to work out reasonably fast, but if you're not sure, grab a calculator out. You're chucking your 63. Okay, and then we start dividing by numbers. But the first two numbers I'm obviously going to look at is probably the 7 and the 9. But the 7 and 9 won't make that amount. So let's just try some numbers. So we might make 21 and 3, because that's an obvious number, because 3 goes into 61. And when I do 21 and 3, what I do recognize is that 21 subtract 3 does in fact make 18. So it's actually worked out nicely. And of course, when I times them, I get the minus 63. So it's worked out. So 7x squared plus 21x minus 3x minus 9. I'm going to underline the first and second term. So I'm now going to factorize. I get 7x outside of x plus 3. I'm going to take the 1 out. Oh, no, the minus 3 out. I get my x plus 3. And I now have 7x minus 3 in one set of brackets and x plus 3 in the other set of brackets in some order. job done, okay? A little bit harder because you're trying to find those numbers with bigger numbers, but just keep working and looking at the factors, use your calculator to divide the numbers and see what you get. Okay, the last one definitely is an asterisk question, and this is one of the ones which is a bit more challenging. So certainly for our honours classes, this is the one that we're kind of focused on. You notice none of the questions that we've done so far have had a negative on the x squared. There's a reason for that. We don't like it there. So we actually try and factorize the negative out of this question. For example, if I take a negative out, I'm left with 2x squared here. I'm left with minus 7x here, and I'm left with a plus 6. So I've taken that negative out. What I'm now going to look at is my product and sum on the inside. So if I highlight that in blue, that's what I'm now trying to use my product and sum for. So my first number is 2 times 6 is 12. My middle term is minus 7. So what are my numbers going to be? 6 and 2 don't work, 12 and 1 don't work, 3 and 4 might work. 3 and 4 will look like they will work. The only way 3 and 4 can be multiplied to give positive 12 is they're both positive or both negative. We know one of them has to be a negative, which means they're both negative, okay? And minus 3 minus 4 is minus 7, so it works out nicely. We now go and split these middle terms up. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 4x plus 6. Now, you might like to put big square brackets as well. Certainly when you're factorizing, I think that makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to do square brackets. If I factorize the x out, I'm left with 2x minus 3. If I factorize the negative 2 out, I'm left with 2x plus 3. The warm fuzzies, because they're the same. See how I've used the big brackets? Because I'm going to use some little brackets inside. Just makes it look a bit nicer. You don't have to, of course. It's personal preference. Then I have minus. Now I'm going to take the middle brackets out. 2x minus 3. That's out the front. And I have the x minus 2 left over. And that is my final answer. So whenever you have a negative x squared at the front, then it is important to factorize the minus out and then factorize from there. Definitely a more challenging question, and one of those for the boys who are trying to push themselves to the highest level. Gents, I think this is one of the hardest things you'll do, particularly when you're not at school. It makes it even more challenging. See how you go. Any questions, let me know. You can still message your teachers via Canvas as well, of course, and as well you can message me. Let me know if you need some extra work on this. Otherwise, smash through as many questions as you can, because this is really important moving forward into year 10, 11, and 12. It is absolutely critical that you can do this. Have a wonderful day, gents, and I hope you're well.